The arrival September 1968. A 21-year-old Austrian stepped off a plane at Los Angeles International Airport with a gym bag, broken English, and exactly $27 in his pocket. Arnold Schwarzenegger had just made the most audacious gamble of his young life. He'd left behind everything familiar, his family in Thal, his rising bodybuilding career in Europe, the comfortable certainty of home for a country that didn't know his name and could not pronounce it if they tried. But Arnold wasn't thinking about the odds stacked against him. He was thinking about a promise he'd made to himself years earlier, standing in a cramped movie theater in rural Austria, watching Red Park flex across the screen in Hercules in New York. That moment had ignited something primal in the farm boy's chest. America wasn't just a place, it was destiny. The immigration officer squinted at his passport. Schwarzen. Schwarz-Nig. The man gave up, waving him through with a dismissive grunt. Arnold smiled. He'd heard worse. In Austria, they'd called him delusional. In Munich, they'd laughed at his dreams of Hollywood. Even his own father had told him bodybuilding was a dead-end path for circus freaks and narcissists. When sponsors evaluated him, they heard his thick accent and saw a foreign novelty act, not a future star. The apartment he shared with Franco was a shabby box in Santa Monica, barely affordable even splitting the $200 monthly rent. They survived on canned tuna, cottage cheese, and protein supplements mixed with tap water. Arnold worked construction jobs, laying bricks under the merciless California sun, his hands blistering despite the calluses built from years of lifting iron. His father's letters arrived monthly, each one a reminder of the life he'd abandoned. "Come home," Gustav Schwarzenegger wrote. "You've proven your point. There's honest work waiting here." His mother worried about his health, his isolation, whether he was eating properly. Arnold never replied with doubt. Every letter back radiated confidence he didn't always feel. "I'm exactly where I need to be," he wrote. "America will know my name." The breakthrough that almost wasn't, the 1969 Mr. Olympia competition in New York, should have been Arnold's coronation. He'd transformed his body beyond recognition, adding mass and symmetry that even the skeptical Americans couldn't ignore. At 22, he'd become the youngest competitor ever to challenge for bodybuilding's ultimate title. But the day before the competition, something inside him snapped. He stood in his cramped hotel room, staring at his reflection in a mirror barely large enough to capture his shoulders. The isolation, the financial strain, the constant feeling of being an outsider, it all crashed down at once. He called Franco, voice cracking in a way it never did. "What if I'm not ready? What if they're right and I'm just fooling myself?" Franco's response was characteristically blunt. "Then you've already lost. Get on that stage tomorrow or go home to Austria tonight." There's no middle ground. The next evening, under blazing stage lights in Brooklyn, Arnold walked out as if he owned the building. His posing routine wasn't just athletic, it was theatrical, confident, almost arrogant. He smiled when other competitors grimaced. He flexed with a controlled power that bordered on violence. But he didn't win. Sergio Oliva, the reigning champion, took the title. The judges saw Arnold's potential but deemed him unfinished, too raw. Backstage, devastated, Arnold made a decision that would define everything that followed. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame the judges. Instead, he walked directly to Sergio and studied him with the intensity of a general analyzing battlefield tactics. "Next year," Arnold said in halting English, "you will not beat me." Sergio smiled, amused by the audacity. "We'll see, my friend." The transformation, what happened over the next 12 months, bordered on the superhuman. Arnold didn't just train harder, he reinvented his entire approach to bodybuilding. He studied physiology textbooks like a medical student. He analyzed every weakness in his physique with clinical detachment. His legs needed more sweep. His back required greater width. His posing needed to become pure showmanship. But the real transformation wasn't physical. Arnold recognized something the other bodybuilders missed. This sport wasn't just about muscle. It was about mind games, psychological warfare, building a persona larger than the physical body. He started trash-talking competitors before competitions, planting seeds of doubt. He smiled during brutal workouts, making pain look effortless. He cultivated an aura of invincibility. He also started taking English lessons with obsessive focus, spending hours practicing pronunciation, studying American idioms, watching Johnny Carson religiously to understand timing and charisma. The accent would never fully disappear, he knew that now. So he'd weaponize it instead, making it part of his brand. The Austrian oak, the unstoppable European conqueror. Money remained desperately tight. He took odd jobs bricklaying, carpentry, even posing for art classes at UCLA. But every dollar not spent on rent or food went back into his body, supplements, gym memberships, competition fees. He lived monk-like, monastic in his dedication. His relationship with women during this period was strategic. He dated, but never got attached. Romance was a distraction from the mission. He'd been raised by a strict Austrian father who hammered one lesson into his skull. Weakness was unforgivable. Sentiment was weakness. By September 1970, Arnold wasn't just physically larger. He'd become something else entirely. A carefully constructed machine designed for one purpose: total domination. The coronation, the 1970 Mr. Olympia in New York. This time, nothing was left to chance. Arnold walked on stage and the energy shifted immediately. His physique had evolved into something never seen before, massive yet aesthetic, powerful yet artistic. More importantly, his presentation was flawless. He didn't just pose, he performed. Every flex was timed for maximum impact. Every transition flowed like choreographed dance, but the real weapon was psychological. Before the show, he'd approached competitors with friendly conversation, casually mentioning how great they looked, how relaxed he felt, how this year he wasn't worried about the outcome. Several competitors later admitted they'd walked on stage second-guessing themselves, rattled by Arnold's unshakable confidence. When the judges announced his name as champion, Arnold didn't celebrate with shock or relief. He smiled as if the outcome had been inevitable, predetermined. At 23 years old, Arnold Schwarzenegger became the youngest Mr. Olympia in history. The impossible dream, the one that had seemed delusional back in that Austrian movie theater, had just become reality. But he wasn't done. Not even close. The business mind. Most bodybuilders celebrated their championships and went back to the gym. Arnold went to business school metaphorically. He'd observed something crucial about America. Muscle opened doors, but money kept them open. Fame without wealth was just temporary spotlight. He needed both. With prize money and sponsorships from his Olympia win, Arnold didn't buy luxury items. He invested. Real estate became his first focus. He studied the Los Angeles market with the same intensity he'd studied anatomy. He identified undervalued properties in emerging neighborhoods, bought apartment buildings, renovated them, and flipped them for profit. By age 25, while still competing and winning Mr. Olympia titles annually, Arnold had built a real estate portfolio generating steady passive income. He hired accountants, lawyers, investment advisors. He attended seminars on business strategy and negotiation tactics. His fellow bodybuilders thought he was crazy, wasting energy on side ventures. But Arnold saw the future clearly. The body would age, competitions would end, but financial intelligence compounded forever. He also started positioning himself for the next phase, Hollywood. The Hollywood rejection: your body is great, your English is terrible, and your name is impossible, the casting director said flatly. You'll never work in American films. This was Arnold's introduction to Hollywood's gatekeepers. Again and again, he heard variations of the same message. Too big, too foreign, too strange. His accent was distracting. His physique made him uncastable in normal roles. His name made him unmarketable. Studios suggested he change everything, become Arnold Strong. Slim down. Take speech lessons until the accent disappeared. Basically, stop being Arnold Schwarzenegger. He refused every suggestion. "I didn't come to America to become someone else," he told his agent. "They will accept me as I am, or I will make them." His first film role in 1970, Hercules in New York, was a disaster. They dubbed over his voice with another actor's. The movie bombed critically and commercially. Hollywood's verdict seemed confirmed. Bodybuilders couldn't act. But Arnold studied every frame of that failure. He took acting classes. He watched great performers obsessively, analyzing what made them compelling on screen. He understood charisma wasn't taught, it was cultivated through relentless observation and practice. More importantly, he refused to disappear. He kept showing up to auditions, kept networking, kept building relationships with anyone who might open doors later. He approached Hollywood the same way he'd approached bodybuilding, as a long-term conquest requiring patience, strategy, and absolute conviction. The pivot point: Arnold had retired from professional bodybuilding after winning his 6th Mr. Olympia title. He was 30 years old, wealthy from real estate investments, and seemingly stuck in Hollywood purgatory. Small roles in forgettable films. Casting directors who still saw him as a novelty. Then came the script for Pumping Iron, a documentary about bodybuilding culture. Most of Arnold's advisors told him to past documentaries didn't launch major careers, and this would typecast him further as just a bodybuilder. Arnold saw something different. He saw an opportunity to control his narrative, to present himself not as a muscle-bound meathead, but as an intelligent, charismatic, complex personality. He essentially co-directed his own portrayal, showcasing his wit, his psychological tactics, his philosophy of success. When Pumping Iron released, it became a cultural phenomenon. Audiences didn't just see muscles, they saw a magnetic personality, who combined European sophistication with American ambition. Critics praised Arnold's screen presence, his natural charisma, his surprising intelligence. Suddenly, Hollywood looked at him differently. Not as a bodybuilder trying to act, but as a unique presence with legitimate star potential. The call came months later. Director John Milius wanted Arnold for a lead role in Conan the Barbarian, not a bit part. Not a stunt role, the lead. But there was a catch. The studio was nervous. Could this Austrian bodybuilder actually carry a major motion picture? Arnold's response was characteristically bold. He spent months studying sword fighting, horseback riding, and ancient warrior culture. He transformed his still massive physique into something more primal and savage. He worked with dialect coaches not to eliminate his accent, but to make it sound ancient and otherworldly. When Conan released in 1982, it earned $68 million, a massive hit. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Austrian immigrant who'd arrived with $27, was now a bona fide movie star. The legacy seed. But the real Arnold Schwarzenegger was just being born. Over the next decade, he'd become the biggest action star on the planet. The Terminator, Predator, Total Recall. Each role proof that his so-called weaknesses, the accent, the physique, the foreign otherness, were actually his greatest strengths. He didn't fit Hollywood's mold because he created his own. Later would come politics, governorship, controversies, and scandals. But this chapter, the impossible promise made by a 21-year-old with nothing but conviction, this was the foundation. Arnold once said in an interview, "When I arrived in America, people told me I had 3 strikes against me. My body was too big. My accent was too thick. My name was too long. But I never saw strikes. I saw opportunities to be different. That farm boy from Austria, standing in lax with $27, betting everything on an American dream that seemed delusional, he'd proven one fundamental truth. The only impossible dreams are the ones you do and chase with absolute conviction." The promise had been kept, and America would never forget his name.